Hello, and welcome to Monumental, where we sit down with entrepreneurs, leaders, visionaries, and big thinkers making monumental change. Here's your host, Evan Holiday.
We are back with another episode of Monumental. I'm your host, Evan Holiday, and today's guest is Damion Lupo. Damion is a best-selling author of 5 books in personal finance and money thinking. He's the host of the Transformation Nation podcast. He owns over 30 businesses and is a 5th degree black belt and a founder of his own martial art called Yokitto. Damion plays by a totally different set of rules and bought his first rental house with a visa, a move that then snowballed into owning over 150 rental houses in 7 states in less than 5 years. In 2008, he lost the entire $20 million in rental houses, but recreated his wealth and reinvented his life over 4 transformational years. So today, he actually leads Total Control Financial with one unified mission: to free people from money bondage. In today's episode, we dive into how to achieve your own financial freedom, how to learn from your mistakes and learn from others' mistakes, and how to live a life on purpose in whatever you do. And if you're listening right now, please go to iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, iHeartRadio, wherever you listen to the Monumental right now, and please leave us a review. The reviews really help us grow our audience and help us continue to bring other great guests just like Damion so that we can continue to provide value every day to our listeners. So if you haven't yet, go leave us a review now. With that, let's jump right into the show. All right, Damion, thank you for being on the show today. How are you doing?
I'm good, Evan. It's good to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so let's just jump right in and tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are today.
It's a loaded question. Where who am I? Where did I come from? I grew up in Alaska. My last job that I actually didn't get fired from, I was working in the Arctic Circle with polar bears trying to eat me, which is a true story. And that was the first entrepreneurial thing happened when I was 11, and I was buying and selling Nintendo games because my parents told me we couldn't afford anything, and I was like, nope, I'm gonna figure out a way. So I did that for a while, and then that led to the polar bear experience. And then I finally said, I got to get out of here. It's 80 below zero. There's polar bears that are like going to eat me if I take out the trash and don't see them. So I moved to civilization. I left Alaska and came down to the lower 48, as we call it up there, and proceeded to go to college and ended up getting thrown out a couple of times because I started a bookstore on campus that put the other bookstore out of business. So I'm like not very popular with the mainstream. Like I basically piss everybody off because I look for problems and I want to solve them. And when monopolies are trying to protect those things, they get really annoyed. So I've become the annoying factor in whatever industry I go into.
And so now, where are you today? You're the black belt wealth. You're helping people do everything, right?
Well, it's funny. I'm still annoying right now. I'm annoying the Wall Street establishment because my focus is on empowering people, because I have a different way of looking at financial freedom. I don't think that if someone is handed $4 or $5 million, or they are handed a bunch of cash flow from an apartment or something, that they're truly free. I think I've seen enough people come to me and they go, I've got $3 or $4 or $5 million and I'm scared. And I say, well, what are you scared of? They're like, we don't know what to do. Like, we're afraid we're going to lose it and we don't have time because we're 50 years old.
Right.
So my focus is on empowering people with the tools and the shift in mindset. And it's easy to say, oh, we've got mind tools. We're gonna give you better beliefs. I mean, Tony Robbins is beautiful at that, except it ends like it wears off by Wednesday usually. So after your weekend, you're like, okay, now what? I got to go get more of that Tony Robbins crack. And by the way, I seriously do love Tony. Like, he changed my life, and it was because I did stuff afterwards. I actually built the muscle, and that's the freedom piece. If you have a way to build the confidence muscle around money, and that's where black belt wealth is. It's like a martial art. You can't go to a martial art and learn the art by staring through the window into the dojo. You have to go into the dojo and you go there every day and you do it for like 10 years, and then you might actually know something. So that's the same thing with money and finance. It's helping people build that muscle so that they are truly free. That's the shift. And that's what most people aren't doing. They just think they can read themselves into freedom, and that's not true.
Right. No, you're exactly right. You see that time and again too with people that they think that they're on the journey, but they're not really acting. And then there's some people that aren't even on the journey, but think it'll just fall into their lap. And
I had an old partner, and she used to say the most idiotic thing. I would say, "How are you doing?" She goes, "I'm making progress." And I go, "Yeah, I think you're just running enthusiastically in the wrong direction. Like, I don't think you're making progress in the direction of your vision. I think you're actually going backwards, but you have no idea because you're making all this progress. People think that they're busy. It's a badge of honor, and it's therefore good. And I fundamentally disagree. So the question is, really, where are you heading? And are you going in that direction, or are you just moving in circles? Like a drunk merry-go-round.
That's a good analogy.
I don't know how a merry-go-round gets drunk, but it's kind of like being drunk on a merry-go-round. You think you're making progress, but you're just going in a circle.
Right.
And if your attention span is really short, which it is based on our Facebook lives, everything looks new every 4 seconds. You're like, oh, amazing. This is so great. But it's truly the same thing over and over again. That's what our lives are. It's literally psycho that we think something new is happening and it's exciting because there's motion. That's crazy.
Yeah, exactly. How are you getting people to make that shift and actually take action towards financial freedom or just financial independence or whatever that step is?
So there's this thing. I had a conversation with some folks that are in the process of becoming clients with me, and when we were talking, the guy, it was a couple, and the guy said, I'm scared. I'm not a numbers guy. I don't get it. He's a former Marine, and I said, how are you scared? And it's funny because last night I was talking to a friend of mine who was a SEAL team guy, and he was nervous about money too. And I said, how are you scared, man? You are trained to be a lethal weapon. He goes, yeah, but we take all the risk out of it because we're trained and it's all automatic. And I go, oh, that's the huge shift. When you take the risk out of it because of your training and you go through the motions, they're not just reading a book. SEAL teams, Marines, they don't just read a book. They're actually out there doing it. They've got muscle memory. It's like my martial arts. I'm a 5th degree black belt. All that means is that I've got muscle memory. So no matter what happens, I wake up in the middle of the night and I can jump and go. Like I'm not thinking, it's just automatic. So what we do is we find ways to get people engaged where they're not afraid of getting eaten by a polar bear. Meaning we give them something that they go, okay, I can do this. And they're not going into paralysis. That's where most people stay. They're paralyzed thinking the tiger or the bear or something is going to eat me if I go do this thing. They are told, go buy an apartment house or do something, and they're like, that thing is going to bankrupt me, and so they don't do it. But could they go to a seminar that costs $50 or $100? Could they go to a mastermind? I mean, there's things, taking steps that won't kill them, and it starts to build that confidence muscle. That's what we have to figure out. What is that next thing to create some momentum? Not just progress, but like momentum in the right direction.
Right. And when you're working with your clients, is that something where you're looking at what is the next step that pushes them outside of their comfort level a little bit and towards that big action? Yeah,
so the first thing, it's fascinating to me. There's a saying that I saw, and it's barato si caro, and it means cheap objects are expensive. And I think it's Portuguese. And so what people tend to do is they turn their Walmart-ness on, and they go find the cheapest advice they can get. Usually it's their neighbor or their cousin or their spouse or something. And they get this advice, and then they do the dumbest thing ever because the advice was dumb. It's cheap and it's very expensive because they take action based on misinformation. And so what I do for the first thing is that you're going to pay attention to something that you have to pay for. And so if you make $100,000 a year and you've got a coach or you've got somebody that's helping you and they're charging you $100 or $200 and you don't do anything, there's no pain. So the first thing I'm always thinking about is, okay, if you're wanting to change something and you've got advisors or a team, are you paying enough to pay attention? And if you're not feeling awkward and nervous around what you're paying for that support and that accountability, you're probably not going to make the type of progress that you would have if you actually hit that pain threshold. So that's a big part of the equation. Are you hitting the awkward, anxious, like this is a lot of money, I got to do something with this, I can't afford not to? That's where most people aren't at yet. And it's a shift. It doesn't matter if you're paying $200 or $20,000 for somebody's time. I used to pay $10,000 for a half-hour conversation once a month. Is that crazy? I don't know. It made me $5 million.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, you're 10 times more committed when you know that your money's on the line and you've already invested in it.
And you're not going to waste time. I mean, that's one of the things about somebody that's at a very high level. There's lots of coaches and mentors that are out there that are working with people And I mean, I'm pretty leery about most people that want to have me as a coach or mentor. I don't do it very often, maybe a couple times a year right now, because most people are going to waste my time, and my time is too damn valuable. There's things that I'm doing to impact other people. And if somebody steals my time and doesn't do something with it, I can't get that time back. They literally stole it from me. So I'm going to make sure somebody's committed. That's why it's very, very high dollar. It's not expensive. What's expensive is getting cheap advice or free advice. That's expensive.
Yeah, exactly. And you're investing in something that's going to impact every other part of your life. From it is the total package, right? If you can figure out your financing, then that in turn will, I mean, it's not everything, but it will help you align certain other parts of your life to do what you want to do.
Well, the truth is that the way that we do anything is the way we do everything. And so if your financial life is all jacked up and doesn't make sense, your relationships are jacked up. Everything is going to be jacked up. Your health is going to be jacked up. And even if you have a six pack and you look real strong, your insides are probably all jacked up. So the question is, where is your level of commitment for your life in general? And that's where I see the biggest progress with people that go into a space where it's uncomfortable for them to commit, but they commit anyway. And everything changes. It's like a domino effect. Once they make that one choice, I mean, you truly, if you pick the right coach or the right mentor, the right accountability person in your life, it's fascinating how everything starts to happen. And all the crap gets pushed away. All the things that matter get the time that they need. Like, it really does change everything, because you just can't not do it. It's too easy to not do things. I mean, we can be very lazy nowadays. You look around, it's not hard to be lazy in America. I mean, you can just kind of get by. I mean,
it's set up for it.
It is. And so that's also based on a booming economy and a bull market. It changes a bit when you have a correction, but right now it's not very hard. I mean, people can get by, and then they can bitch and complain at any level, 50,000 a year or 5 million, they're still complaining.
Yeah. So how have you, I know you, in your Reinvented Life book, you took readers through your journey of reinvention. Could you walk us through that a little bit for our listeners?
Yeah, when Chris and I wrote Reinvented Life, there was this process where we decided we wanted to share our experience and the stories and actually go behind the curtains of shifting, because these were major. We didn't just decide to go from H&R Block to KPMG as accountants. Like, we didn't. There wasn't like that. It was like Chris went from being a musician, a professional world-class touring musician, to a partner at a big four firm. And I sort of shifted from this place of saying, okay, it was all about the money and it was never going to be enough. It was all about more, to a place of, what is my purpose? Not my passion so much. This is where Stephen Pressfield really goes into this in his books, that there's passion, and you get a bunch of people that are literally running around enthusiastically with scissors in the wrong direction and they're stoned. Or you have your purpose. And the purpose is where you start to tap into yourself as an artist. And that's where the impact happens. That's what we're here for. Whether you want to talk about our God-given purpose or talents or whatever, that's the shift. The Reinvented Life was about saying, okay, what do I need to do in terms of rewiring to move myself into that place of purpose, so that I'm not just going around this merry-go-round the rest of my life? Because that's really what it is. When you focus on money and consumption, and that's your primary driver, it's never going to be enough. That merry-go-round just gets faster, maybe bigger, maybe shinier. I mean, but it's the same thing. You have to get off that thing and go into the darkness. That's called the hero's journey. And that's a reference to Joseph Campbell's work about finding out who you are. And once you know who you are, the real work begins by going into a place where you're on purpose and you become like a crazy person, because nothing can disrupt it. Like, you literally go a little nuts from most people's perspective because they're not on purpose.
And take us through that really low point for you, and how you finally decided to make that transition.
Well, so in the story of my meltdown and crash, I think a lot of us have those different moments in our lives, and it doesn't really matter the number. For me, I had built up a $20 million portfolio, had a $5 million net worth, and in a matter of 12 months went to negative $5 million. So lost the 20 million in assets, had to start over. And so I did what I think is a rational thing. I just pretended it didn't happen for 2 years. It seems like a good idea.
Right,
at the time,
right.
It seemed like a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, it's rational in the moment, right?
Yeah, I mean, very emotionally rational. That's what I did. And after a couple of years, when I got fired as a volunteer on a political campaign, I mean, who gets fired as a volunteer? I remember going, what do you mean I'm getting fired? And they're like, we just think you do better somewhere else. I go, I am free. But I was crazy about winning. And I stepped away from the thing. I denied that I got fired for a while. I said, oh no, I quit. No, they literally fired me. I'm now friends with the candidate. We travel and teach finance around the world together. It's funny though, after I acknowledged that I had been fired, I was arguing on blogs and things. I stepped back and I said, okay, I did get fired. Why? It's because I wasn't on purpose. I was just doing something to try to hide from the reality of who I was. And I hadn't done the work yet on the actual reinvention process, which is hard. The hardest work anybody would ever do is the work on themselves. And what that looked like was finding somebody that I could get help from, where I sat with this guy for 2 years in Austin, Texas, and we asked one question. The question is, what is true? Every week, we went deeper and deeper into what is true. You want to go conscious? You want to find the pain? You want to rewire yourself? Ask that question and then be honest about it and have somebody staring back at you. And when you say something and they say, really? And you go, oh, maybe not.
Yeah.
Maybe it's something else. And eventually you pop out of that thing where you've gone through it's perturbation. It's where you literally have so much pressure on yourself by going deep that you pop out. Ilya Prigogine talked about this. He's a UT professor, or he was. And the whole idea is that if you put pressure on something, whether it's coal or a caterpillar, it pops out on the other side in a different form at a higher energy level. And David Hawkins goes into this in Power versus Force, that everything is at a different energy level. There's enlightenment and love and truth is at a higher level than, judgment and blame and victimhood. Those are very low. And so I popped into a different level after doing that work for a couple of years. And since then, it's been about finding ways to contribute to more people, which is a totally different thing than figuring out how to buy another Ferrari.
Yeah, that's a big shift. And that takes a lot of time and effort and energy and digging into yourself. And, it all starts in yourself, right? And that's where everything radiates from. And if you can't figure out yourself, then nothing else is going to get figured out. So I love that line, what is true? And just asking that every week. And people could do that to themselves, right? I mean, just do that in the mirror.
That was the idea behind Reinvented Life when we wrote it. If you look at the book, and if you go to reinvention.net, you'll actually see that you can download the workbook, which is all the questions from the book, and you can just download it for free. And basically what we wanted to do is give people a way for them to take themselves through a book. Like, this is not a Harry Potter book. You don't just read this thing from front to back. This is interactive, and it's really asking the questions that are going to give you clarity, because if you have clarity, you have power. If you don't have clarity, you have no power. When somebody says, I know what I want, and I go, tell me, where's it written? They say, no, it's in my head. I say, you don't have clarity. And because our brain will play tricks on us. And so that's why it's so important to mark your books up, to find the things that you can write down and then have them stare back at you. The reason that I write books, I've written a bunch of books, is because when I think I know something and then I start writing about it, I realize how little I know about it. I go, oh my God, I'm an idiot. So the book helps me clarify my understanding, and it brings something out that's actually in a language that other people could understand.
Right.
So that's the process of doing it. That's why I write. Some people write for different reasons. That's how I do it. It's so I can clarify my own thinking. And that's where we start.
I can relate to that, because whenever I teach somebody something, I realize, I'm like, oh, you know what? That isn't, there's a better way to do it. Or I didn't realize I thought about it that way. And you just realize things when you actually take time to write it down or put it into words, what you're doing.
That's a huge shift, but it takes time. And we've gotten into a space where everything is instantaneous. We're addicted to the idea of a 4-hour work week. God bless Tim Ferriss. But that is not reality. If we want a deep, meaningful life, that it's going to be 4 hours of work. Like, give me a break. I mean, does anybody really think that we're meant to have 164 hours of just goofing off? What we're not meant to do is have a job that we hate for the next 40 years. That's not what we're meant to have. But this idea that we just outsource our life, it's like passive income, or, I mean, to an extreme. Imagine passive sex. How excited are you going to be with your partner, and your partner's like, oh, I'm totally into passive everything, including sex. You'd be like, this is terrible.
I'm kind of here. I'm kind of not.
You don't want that. I mean, nobody wants that.
I can agree to that. Okay. So, man, where to go from here? So tell us a little bit about, you did talk about, you just touched on kind of like, you know, it takes a lot of work to get to where people want to be. So how have you been able to actually put in the work and don't just talk about it, but actually make shit happen? How have you been able to put in that work?
So one of the things that I found, people tend to be very resistant to having a scheduled calendar. They go, oh, that's like a trap. And I go, you know what? The people that have the most freedom have the most focused calendars. And it also is really, really helpful to figure out what your values are. People all the time will say, I value this. And I go, really? Let me see your calendar. Let me see your checkbook. Because what you're saying and what you are doing are totally different. And they go, wait a second. I don't want to show you that. So with the calendar, the way to get anything done is to be really diligent about where your time is going and where your money's going. We dictate our values based on how we spend our time and money. So that's the first thing. Get really clear and figure out, is all my time doing something that is just for more money to get more objects that make me feel better about myself because I'm focusing on security and significance? Or if I look at my calendar, is a chunk of it, maybe a big chunk, focused on the contribution that's actually deeply fulfilling, which to me is more important than the success. The success is one of the secret, it's the security and significance. I was going to say it's a 4-letter word, but the success is really a moment in time. And we tend to get obsessed about, I'm going to have an MBA, or I'm going to retire, or, I'm going to have this moment in time that's going to define my life. And then the moment's over. And you think about the people that are embarrassing to be around, the ones that their moment in time was the high school football game, and that's it. Like, it's all downhill from there. Or they're looking out and they're like, oh man, when this job ends, my dad did this. He said, I only got 12 more years. I said, 12 more years of crap. Like, you hate your job. You hate it. Came home mad as hell every day, yelling, screaming. And it was he was addicted to the idea of security. And it was just this one moment in time. And here's the problem. Right before he died, we had a conversation like 6 weeks earlier. And he looked at me and he said, God, there were so many things that I wanted to do. And I remember being speechless. What do you say to that? It's somebody that has run out of time, and they were always looking to the future for the moment, the success that they were going to have.
Right.
And they never did the life on purpose that was fulfilling along the way. That's the mistake people are making. They're not in their lives. They're waiting for their lives to happen someday. They're living on the someday aisle. I mean, it's really, really horrible to see that. And if you want to experience hell on earth, it's meeting the image, the man that you could have been. And that's what my dad was seeing a few weeks before he died. He's like, shoot, I don't have any more time. That worst regret ever. I mean, there's a pain of discipline or the pain of regret. Regret is 1,000 times heavier than discipline will ever be.
Yeah, that's powerful. Yeah, and I think, it goes to what would you want the people at your, beside you as you're about to pass away? What would you want them to thank you for, or what would you want them to be talking about you?
I think about this a lot after going through that experience. Anybody that's lost a parent or lost somebody close, especially a parent's a unique thing, because it's not like we have this experience 50 times, like once or twice. And I just remember thinking, I heard Wayne Dyer being interviewed by Tony Robbins years ago before Wayne passed. And I think the question was something to the effect, what would you want people to remember? And he's like, nothing. And it was like, his response is weird. And I was thinking, wow, that's not very profound, but is it? And my thinking is, I just want, when I leave, I'm not looking for somebody else's validation of my life. I'm looking for my own experience to be, wow, I gave it all and I am good. This thing is complete. That's it.
Yeah.
So, right now in your life, if you're on that path, if you're literally on that journey of fulfillment, or if you're thinking, when I retire, my life starts. Have you seen people that do that? They're the ones that are like holding up the lines when you go overseas and you're traveling. They're like, they're slow and they're all cranky and all they can think about is the next buffet. Like, it's really embarrassing.
Yeah. And there are quite a few people out there that just are looking forward to a future period of time, and that may or may never come.
No, and if you really want to, if you want to knock yourself into like knock yourself around a little bit, go on a cruise ship sometime, and you'll literally see heaven's waiting room. You'll see these people that are going in on oxygen, and they're in line to go to go eat, and then they leave, and then they jump in the pool, and the water level changes, and they bob around for a while until their next feeding. Like, this is what people are looking forward to. It's, I mean, to me, it's sad that we've built ourselves a society where people are waiting to actually go in because they're afraid to engage. They're afraid that something's going to eat them. Nothing is going to eat you unless you wash dishes in the Arctic Circle like I did. And I promise most people aren't doing that.
I was just going to say something happened in Alaska.
Okay, it could also happen in Africa. Like, I was there, and our guide said, do not get out of the Jeep, because we had a lady last week and she got out of the Jeep and she was rearranging the tiger cubs or the lion cubs, and mama came over and ate her. So I was like, okay, so there's another opportunity to be eaten. But I promise you, if you make a mistake, because I know you're told in school, if you make a mistake, if you make 50% wrong, you're a failure and they kick you out. But the truth is, you get 50% wrong, which means you got 50% right. In the real world, you're a freaking billionaire.
Yeah.
Like, you're impacting the world. And so we've been trained wrong. Our educational system is training us wrong. It's teaching us the wrong thing. Telling people that they're stupid because they made mistakes. I mean, that's how you create change. That's how you live a life that's well lived. That's a fulfilling life. You stub your toe, you grow. I mean, that's how it works.
And you said something along the lines of make more mistakes more quickly than anybody else. Is that right?
Fail faster. I mean, that is the key. If you want to have a life where you're literally not going, oh damn, the whole regret thing, you fail faster. And here's the shift that you have to make. You have to disconnect the failing from you, meaning you can't be the failure. If the failure is a noun, if you're identifying, like when I lost my net worth, problem is my self-worth was my net worth. So I'm negative 5 billion. I'm like, well, shit, maybe I should put a gun in my mouth. Like, this is, I mean, I'm being serious. It's a very dark place when your entire identity is your balance sheet. And that is what people are doing. They're afraid to make a mistake. They're just saying, okay, well, I want to look good. I want to feel good. And so they're afraid to make a mistake because they think that makes them the mistake.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And people need to realize that, as long as you are putting yourself out there long enough and learning from each mistake, then you will grow as a person, and those around you will also grow, and you'll be able to do some amazing things.
Well, here's a little hack. If you want a Tim Ferriss hack, don't make the same mistake every time. Like, actually learn from it. So people go, oh, you see people, and it's like you have 20 years of the same year versus of experience. Like, you've literally you've done the same thing for 20 years. So you're not more valuable. You're just like in the middle of Groundhog Day.
You're back on that merry-go-round.
You're on the merry-go-round. So learn the mistake and then grow and find a new mistake. And what's even better is find people that are mentoring you that can teach you from their mistakes. Like, when I work with people and the books that I'm teaching from, and it's not that I've done well. There's a ton of clowns out there that have done well in real estate. Just go watch HDTV and you flip that house and you can see all these people making all this money. That's not who you should learn from. You want to understand. I always look at people and figure out how much bald and how much gray they've got. I want to know people have been out there, that they've actually got scar tissue, that they've been through cycles, where they've got emotional intelligence, that they're not just saying, oh yeah, it's easy. I can just flip 5 houses and I'm going to make $250,000 a year. It's a piece of cake. Yeah. I've been doing it for 3 whole years. I've got a track record. I'm like, you're full of crap.
Yeah.
You want people that have been through stuff. You want people that have been around 15, 20 years. Somebody that's been around 10 years right now has not been through a cycle. That is, in general, that is baloney. That's like unicorns and lollipops and puppy dog logic.
Well, speaking of real estate, I would love to hear more. I saw you bought your first rental house with a visa and then eventually got up to 150 rental houses. Are you still in owning real estate?
I love real estate. What I do now is I basically focus on building and I lend. So I'm in a different place just based on my philosophy. When I bought my house, one of the great things about doing real estate when you're 22 years old is that you're naive as all get out. You think, oh, I can build the Great Wall of China in a week, no problem. So I thought it made sense to buy a house with a visa. I don't recommend that strategy. It's a very stupid idea.
Don't know if it's allowed anymore.
You know what? People, here's the thing. You can make up a lot of things and just go to town. When you're 22, you just think you're 10 feet tall and bulletproof and like nothing can hit you. It's why people will drink 2 bottles of vodka and think, oh, no big deal, because they can get away with it. And then you get to be 30 or 40 and you're like, oh, some of those things you can't get away with.
Exactly.
So in the real estate, I mean, I did what the seminar guys told me to do. And it's the people that don't make it in real estate are too afraid of making a mistake. And they tend to hesitate instead of taking action because they're afraid, oh, I might make a mistake and lose some money. It might cost me some money. Yeah, you know what you're doing? You're playing not to lose. You're not playing to win. Watch a sports game, any game that's ever been played, and wait until the team starts playing not to lose because they're ahead. Guess what? They lose. That's your life. I decided to go out there and I tried things, and when they stuck, I did more of them. That led to 150 houses. The problem is my ego took over, and it led to Ferraris and Lamborghinis and big lifestyles and a $75,000 monthly overhead, like stupid stuff.
$75,000. Wow.
A month. I remember when this thing melted, when I melted down, and it was it was funny because I thought that I had cut my expenses and there's no way I could go below 20,000 a month. I was like at 22,000, and a buddy of mine looked at my stuff and he said, "You're not making any money. You just lost everything." I go, "I know. I can't cut anything else." He said, "What do you mean you can't cut? You're basically spending what the top 1% is making. Are you crazy?" And I said, "Yeah, but I can't cut anything else, man. I got a lifestyle." And I defended that thing right until I had no money. And then all of a sudden, I didn't have any choice.
Have a choice, yeah.
I didn't have a choice. I'm like, well, shoot. I got to go figure out how to make $400 to pay for a vehicle payment. Like,
yeah,
it really changes things. And then you end up sleeping in your car, and you're like, maybe I didn't need a $20,000 overhead, and that was my baseline. Perhaps my baseline is a different number.
Yeah, and I think that brings up a good point. I mean, people need to figure out what they're comfortable living with, and then go through, like you had talked about before, like figuring out financial freedom for them based on that number, so that they can live a good lifestyle and live it off their passive income.
Well, and here's even a further step back in that idea, in how we structure and how we envision and what we create, is to really start figuring out how you're going to contribute. I think a lot of times people look at the fireplace of their lives and they say, well, once it puts out some fire, then I'm going to put some wood in that, and I'll do the work after I get the thing. So they go, well, the lifestyle is the heat. The lifestyle is what you get after you do the work. And people start with that and they go, okay, well, I want this lifestyle. So what's the minimum work I can do to get the lifestyle? And I look at that and I go, no, do work that matters. Do it with enthusiasm. Do something that actually contributes to other people. The money takes care of itself. If you're on purpose, the money takes care of itself. I just don't believe in this idea of going and working for money and being a whore, because I think that's what most people are doing. They're absolutely whoring themselves out and wasting their lives. Doesn't mean you don't have to eat. What I'm saying is that when you do it year after year, you've literally put yourself in a trap. And who wants to be a hooker your entire life? Probably nobody.
I don't think that's on too many people's lists. And like you're saying, I mean, if you can find something that you really care about and you can really add value for other people or the world, then that is tremendous value, and it'll reciprocate and it'll come right back to you.
It does. And it happens in different ways. I was watching a TED talk, and there was a kid that showed up, and you guys listening may have seen this kid. He basically said, I want to fix the problem. It's called a giant plastic ocean in the middle of the Pacific. We've got this giant pile of plastic, and he's now 6 years, 7 years, 8 years later, he's fixing this problem. He's out there and he's building these collection systems. He found a problem. He is on purpose. And when he started, he was like 18 or 16, or, I mean, it was.
Yeah, it was, I know who you're talking about. I think it's Boris Yeltsin, or, yeah.
So, try to tell me that you can't go do something. The worst thing, the worst thing I've ever heard from somebody is, I can't take a risk because I got kids. You know what? That's why you take a risk.
Yeah.
So your kids are proud of you. You do the thing that matters, because guess what they're going to turn into? You, a chicken shit. Like, really? That's what you want your kids to be? They're modeling. They're going to become you. So whatever you're doing, if you're playing not to lose, that's what your kids are going to do. And you're going to trap them. So you want to break their financial prison? You want to break their shackles? Go be bold. That's what they're going to turn into. And I hate that excuse when parents do that. It just makes me cringe.
Yeah, and also just putting your purpose first, because if you can put that first, then like you said, your kids will model you, and you'll be able to better serve your kids because you'll be in a much better, happier spot in your life, and you'll just be able to appreciate your kids and give joy to their life.
Yeah, what I see a lot of parents doing is that they focus on their kids instead of focusing on the purpose and focusing on their relationship with their spouse, assuming they have one. It's basically the world revolves around their kids. Do you have any idea how much pressure that puts on a kid and how ridiculous that is? Like, your kids are going to leave, but I see a lot of parents, successful entrepreneurs, business owners, that are afraid of their kids actually leaving. They want to keep their kids weak in a weird way to keep them close. And that's, I mean, it's pathetic. It's devastating. You're literally wronging your kids.
Yeah.
So maybe think about that a little bit. Do you want to be a role model? And even if you don't have kids, you're still modeling. People are still seeing you. They're still picking up on things. I mean, it's amazing what happens, the impact we have that we're not even conscious about. Sometimes we hear about it later. So what we do is not neutral. It does matter.
Yeah, exactly. And I just wanted to jump into, take a sidestep and talk a little bit about Yokitto and mixed martial arts and martial arts, and how you got into it, and then also how you created Yokitto.
So martial arts is sort of an interesting space because there's no end. There's, like, when people will say, well, how long does it take to get a black belt? And I go, 15 minutes. Go to Academy or go to Amazon and get yourself a black belt. You want to become a black belt? 5-10 years. It's a process of mastery. George Leonard wrote a book called Mastery. And if you want to understand life in a totally powerful way, read that book. Martial arts basically calls to you if it's something that's supposed to be in your life. And when Yokitto called to me about 20 years ago, I showed up at a dojo, and I walked up to the guy that was running the class, and I said, do you do private lessons? He said, man, if you last a month, that'd be amazing. And I said, here, I'm going to show you. And I ended up becoming his first black belt. And then over the next 5, 6, 7 years, kept training. And when you do something long enough, if you're really on purpose, something else shows up. It's a combination of the teaching, the learning, and you and your spirit. And the essence of you becomes that thing. And that's what Yokitto was. It was me showing up, and it wasn't anything that had ever been taught before. It was completely different. And it was more about presence. It was more about connection. And ultimately, the thing that I infused into this martial arts style was being able to be in relationship with conflict and heal the conflict while you're going through and redirecting it and grounding the energy. That's never been done before. And that's what came out of this. And it had to. I didn't have a choice. It was like I was pregnant. It was like the Virgin Mary or something. Like, I got pregnant with this thing and I had to get it out, but it was coming. So there it was.
That's amazing. I love the idea of, you have some passion of yours, or you become, you're kind of going on this journey with your passion, and it helps you grow, and eventually something comes out of it that's totally different and unique. And that's exactly, and you created something out of it.
Yeah, it's an artifact. It's Buckminster Fuller talks a lot about this in his works. If you want to talk about somebody that's brutally hard to read and understand, he's probably the smartest guy of the 20th century. And he talks about artifacts, and we're here. Robert Kiyosaki studied with him, and he talks about him a lot too. The idea is we're here to be creating artifacts to serve humanity, that we have there's a higher use for us, and it's God. It's the general overall director. That's what God stands for, according to Bucky. And I think that's a great way to look at it. There is something there's a purpose. We're not just here to procreate and run around like savage animals. There is something more. And when you let go and you really go into that space instead of trying to force it or just trying to be a money bee where you're chasing money, it's fascinating what happens. It's almost like magic, but it's you letting go and going with the universe versus fighting it.
Have you been able to kind of incorporate things you've learned from martial arts and creating Yokitto and taking that over to how you're helping people?
The interesting thing about how we do anything is how we do everything. When I'm teaching in the dojo, or whether I'm teaching somebody about finances, it's the exact same thing. It's the same lessons, it's the same process, it's the same conflict, it's the same moving around, it's the same practice. So they are one and the same. I mean, there's literally no difference in how I show up anywhere and the process of going through and growing. It's the exact same thing in both of those. And so I'll use the dojo as a place to study and learn how I'm going to do better and teach better, more effectively, and empower people with different skills and tools to be able to move freer through their financial lives. It's a fascinating thing when you stop fighting amongst the different compartments of your life.
And have you taken in Yokitto? It also kind of blends yoga, is that right?
Yeah, it's a blend of yoga and Aikido and Reiki. So people have obviously heard of yoga, and Aikido is the blending art. If you've ever seen Steven Seagal, I don't stick pool cues through people's necks, but that's kind of a version of it. And then Reiki is a healing hands modality. It's a body art where you're using your hands to heal through the energy. And so that's the idea with Yokitto, that you're not only moving around people and blending from their energy and redirecting them, but you're also healing that conflict and that anger and whatever the struggle is, the aggression. You're healing it in the process of moving around and redirecting it. That completely changes everything. It's not just about getting rid of the problem and walking away. It's about being part of the solution.
And do you meditate on a regular basis, or is Yokitto part of your meditation?
Yeah, meditation is something that I do every day, and and I struggle with it. I mean, it's when you have an engaged mind, it's fascinatingly hard to get it to stop. So I do it, and I may struggle the rest of my life with it. I mean, I'm nowhere near anything that would be called mastery in meditation, but I do it. I think it will change your life when you do it. It's the opposite of Facebook.
The opposite of Facebook. # meditation.
That's right.
I love it. All right, let's jump into the monumental questions.
All right.
So what does success and fulfillment mean to you?
Fulfillment is where you lose yourself in the work that you do. And there's nothing you can imagine doing that would be more important than the thing that you're involved in.
I love it. Do you have a morning ritual or a daily habit that contributes to a good day?
Yeah, so I truly believe that health is the first wealth. And so every day I work out. Sometimes it's literally 10 minutes. It doesn't make any difference. I'm working out every day and it's not just the workout, it's what I'm putting in my body. I think that you see a lot of people that are working out and they forget that they're creating toxicity with the crap that they're putting in their body, bad food, alcohol, whatever. So I'm super conscious. That rhythm every morning of working out, though, is how I start my day.
What kind of workouts do you do, or is it?
So it's a combination of weights and cardio and yoga. And it's, one of the things it's really powerful is the environment that you're in. So I've moved into a building that has a gym, a world-class Olympic gym in the ground level. And that's why I moved into this thing. You have to decide whether you're going to make it hard or easy. One of my friends built a gym into his house. So when you walk in the front door, it's probably a 1,500 square foot gym. It's the size of most people's houses.
Wow. Yeah.
And so if it's important to you, trip over it in your life. If you trip over it, you tend to do more of it because it's like there, you can't get around it.
Yeah.
I think that's a very powerful thing. What matters, and if your health matters, find a way to trip over it every day.
Yeah. Exactly. Make it easy on yourself so you don't even think about it. You just do it.
Yep.
What is your favorite book or book you're currently reading?
Favorite book? Mastery and Principles are two. One's new, one's old. Principles by Ray Dalio and Mastery are timeless. If we're focused on success and we're missing the whole process, I think we're losing the point of life. And that's where mastery really comes into play. And if you're not running your life based on principles, I wasn't for 10 years. I was running it based on hedonistic tendencies. So the reboot was in part to figure out what my values and principles were and then make decisions based on that. Dalio does a brilliant job going into business and life principles in that book.
Well, Damion, this has honestly been a blast. How can people reach out to you or follow you?
Best place to find me is DamionLupo.com and grab a copy of the book, the download for Reinvented Life. You can see all the books on DamionLupo.com. Get a copy of that thing, and I think those questions in there are going to help you find some answers that are going to really help you shift whatever you're trying to shift. And it's my gift to you.
I love it. Well, thank you very much, Damion. And honestly, I had a blast, and thank you.
All right, Evan. Thank you so much.
What a great episode with Damion, guys. Did you notice at the end he talked about if it's important to you, trip over it? And really just making things that you value so easy to do every day, you don't even need to think about it. I think that's so powerful in everything we do in forming habits. So let us know what you think about today's episode, and make sure to share the episode on social media, share it with your friends, leave us a review as well. That really just helps us grow our audience and help impact as many people as possible with Monumental. So with that, have a monumental day.